Hi, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Women in Math and STEM, where our mission is to reach out to as many professionals, aspiring professionals, students, whatever you name it. We try to reach out to them, who essentially support the initiative of bringing more women and young girls into the STEM field. So, with that being said, as always, feel free to open up the description or transcript to better follow along, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Hello, and thank you so much for being able to make it today and talk with me. Just to sort of start off, do you mind briefly introducing yourself, walking us through your career journey, and sort of how you ended up as a senior director for MAA?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Dr. Audrey Malagon. So I have a PhD in mathematics, and I just really have always enjoyed math. I really liked both the logic that mathematics has and the creative side. I know people don't always think of math as creative, but for me, it really felt like the perfect blend of creative and logical energies. So I have enjoyed it throughout my career. I was really fortunate when I was in high school to attend what's called a summer honors program. I grew up in rural Nebraska, so this was a opportunity for kids from smaller schools to get together and experience uh, topics outside of their traditional high school classroom. So I got to learn math that was really different than what I would have learned in school, and I think that really excited me and kind of showed me that there was more to math even than what I was seeing in school. So I went to college thinking I would be either a math or biology or Spanish major. I liked all three of those. Turns out I do not like science as much. I don't really like labs and biology. It was kind of grossed me out. So I realized what I liked about science was the reasoning. I like to think about the logic and the reasoning behind it. So math was a really good choice for that. And I ended up actually double majoring in math and Spanish at Agnes Scott College, where I was an undergrad. And then, yeah, I was fortunate to be able to go to college on scholarships and get a fellowship to Emory. So I could just keep doing math and I could eventually get a job that would pay me to do math. And this just sounded great. So there was kind of like no reason to ever stop. And I spent the first part of my career as a college professor. So I worked um, at Mercer University, and then I was at Virginia Wesleyan University for a good part of my career where I taught a lot of different classes. I served as department chair. So I spent a lot of my career teaching and working with students. Something exciting that kind of happened mid-career for me, I realized that there were statisticians and political science and computer scientists all working together to look at ways that mathematics could help verify election results. And so I was fortunate to be able to get involved with a nonpartisan nonprofit organization where I served as their mathematical advisor and worked with other mathematicians and experts advocating for mathematically sound practices in election verification and actually got to help pass a law in my current home state of Virginia. So that kind of opened up a little bit of a different door. And I really liked the way that work helped me connect math to things that were happening in the world in a real way. It was a little bit like teaching because I was explaining to people kind of how math played a role in this other field that seems very different from math. So I really enjoyed sharing math in that way. And I think that, ultimately led me to this role, working with the Mathematical Association of America, whose mission is to advance the understanding of mathematics and its impact on our world. So that seemed like a really good fit.
That sounds really cool. I was also just curious since you mentioned that you also majored in Spanish. I was wondering how your knowledge of Spanish sort of shaped, if at all, your math experience.
I think there's definitely parallels. Like math is really a language too. And so, kind of learning the language of mathematics mirrored a little bit of what I was learning when I was learning Spanish as a language. But it was also um, kind of a nice, just a different area. I felt like I was using different parts of my brain. Like when I was studying, you'd be doing your math homework, and that takes a certain energy and a certain concentration. And then my Spanish homework would be to like read a book and think about it in a completely different way. So I think it was almost a balance for me too.
Sounds good. Sort of to shift gears a little bit, I was wondering what your day as senior director looks like and how you balance this huge responsibility with your other responsibilities and professional commitments.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I love about my job at the MAA is that a lot of my professional interests really come under one umbrella. So senior director for programs can be a lot of things. So, we have a lot going on at the MAA. We're supporting mathematicians from, the time that they're students to the time that they're in their professional careers, kind of all throughout those different stages. So I get to work with people who share my passion for mathematics, which is really exciting. Um, and I get to kind of help support the education of students in mathematics. We do a lot of work on kind of creating resources and supporting a lot of our members or faculty who care a lot about teaching mathematics. And so we do things like publish a curriculum guide to help math departments shape their math majors, an instructional practices guide that brings kind of the newest in evidence-based teaching. We bring people together at an annual conference to share what they're working on. So I get to be a part of kind of all of those things. And then I also get to, see what's happening a little bit in the middle and high school world with all the teachers that help us run the American mathematics competitions, um, and all the way up through the USA Math Olympiads and the international. We actually help train and select USA's team for the International Math Olympiad. That team won first place last year. So I get to just really be a part of a lot of exciting mathematics kind of happening at all different levels, and it's all part of my job.
That sounds really amazing. I was also just curious with all this experience in math and sort of like with the MA, I was wondering what do you sort of see as like the biggest challenges facing math right now as like a field?
Yeah, I think one of the things that people don't really think of as front of mind when they think about mathematics is that it does evolve and change. I find that when I talk to people about math, they often think of it as like kind of already decided, right? Like all the facts that you learned in school, those are the facts. The triangle is what it is, and this is the way calculus works, and nothing is new. But there really are a lot of new theorems and new fields being explored all the time. And so I think one of the challenges or one of the ways that things that impacts math a lot is technology too. So like in some sense, it's easy to think of some branches of mathematics as very separate from technology. The work I did for my PhD, I could basically do with a paper and pencil. But technology does have a big impact on how we do math, how we share math. And so I think, with AI coming on the scene, we're really thinking about kind of what impact does that have? How does that help or hinder or just change um, what happens in mathematics and how the world sees mathematics?
I see. Speaking of the future, I was also just curious, where do you sort of see mathematics like a year from now, 5 years from now, a decade from now, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, I hope that it becomes even more and more important. I hope people really realize that it plays an important role in your life, even if you don't think about it, that math is kind of always acting behind the scenes. But I also hope that people realize that math is kind of for everybody. You don't have to be a mathematician to enjoy mathematics or to just like the kinds of problem solving and thinking that goes along with mathematics. So that would be my hope, is that we kind of just embrace math more widely.
Sounds good. I think you also mentioned that you worked with programming and sort of, or like programming like programs or like making programs and as well as like competitions for the MAA. I was also wondering sort of what other ways or what other initiatives have you been a part of to sort of foster like interest and sort of love for students and math?
Yeah, so one of the strengths of the MAA is all of our members. So we're a professional society for mathematicians. Like I said, most of our members are connected to teaching in some way, or they're working with students in their classrooms, but they're also working in their communities. So I get to connect with people that are creating and implementing these amazing outreach programs that we can provide funding for through the generous support of our donors. They get to go out in the community working with middle and high school students, just kind of sharing math that those students might not see every day. So I think that's, one of the really important ways is just kind of empowering and supporting all of our members who are across the country and sharing the joy of mathematics in their communities.
Sounds good. I was also just wondering, I'm sure you have like a lot of memorable and favorite moments, but if you had to pick a few to share, I was just curious about your absolute favorites or the ones that you remember the most.
I think when I look back, I think really it's the people. I remember the people. So I mentioned, the summer honors program I was in was really formative for me because I got to experience math that was just really different from the way I had approached it in school. It wasn't just sort of problem solving and right answers. It was really like asking why and figuring out how things worked in these mathematical systems. And so I think that was a really important experience for me. But it was really the teacher of that class, like Dr. Murray Siegel came in and shared 2 weeks with a bunch of kids from Nebraska in the summer. And the professors that I had, my PhD advisor, all of those people that encouraged me along the way. I think those are really like the formative moments for me. Really all connect back to the people.
Sounds amazing. And then I'm also curious about just to sort of end off, if you have any like advice, recommendations, suggestions for any students who are currently interested in pursuing a career in math or not yet sure, like what advice would you give to them?
I would say just keep going. Um, everybody hits a wall at some point with whatever they love, and math is no different. So, some people encounter their first really difficult math class in high school. Sometimes it's college, sometimes it's grad school. But at some point, something that seems like really easy and fun and that you're really excited about gets challenging. And if you view that as like a stopping point, or if you think, oh no, now this is impossible, or now I'm not good at it anymore, um, then you lose the opportunity to really like engage in the harder parts. Um, there's so much joy in solving really hard problems, the things that really make you think, and when you succeed in those and you kind of break through and figure out, works or how to do it, I think, that's where a lot of, for me, that the passion around mathematics was. So I mean, I definitely, like everyone else, experienced a point where I went, oh no, this is now too hard. I watched so many students go through that, and when they're able to kind of just keep going, even though it gets a little more difficult, like that's where you really get into the interesting parts. Like you're if it's getting hard, it's because you're getting to something really interesting. So I would say, going through that. Don't let that be a setback. It happens. Everybody hits that point.
Sounds amazing. Thank you so much for coming today. It was absolutely phenomenal.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.